So without further ado, I would like to ask Heléna Herklots, CBE, the Older People's Children's Commissioner, sorry, not Children's Commissioner, Older People's Commissioner for Wales to come in as our first speaker. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shavanah, and Pranam, good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this launch today of the TUC Older Workers Toolkit. It's incredibly timely, given the impact of the pandemic on employment, particularly of older people. And I think facing an increased likelihood, actually, of workers in their 50s and 60s and 70s facing increased likelihood of ageism and age discrimination. And we know about the impact of furlough and redundancies and reduced hours, and also the lockdown restrictions on the impact of COVID and on the health of older workers. So I'm just going to say a little bit about the context, a bit about the work that me and my team are doing, touch on one or two things in the toolkit, and then talk a little bit more about ageism and age discrimination and where we go from here. This week, actually, I published my report called Leave No One Behind, Action for an Age-Friendly Recovery, which sets out the impact of the last few months on older people and the actions that I believe now need to be taken immediately and over the longer term to ensure that older people aren't left behind as we transition from this phase of the pandemic. And that report draws on analysis and evidence from my team, but importantly, from a number of engagement events that we held with people across Wales, older people, community groups, public bodies, and others. And a key area for action that I've identified is the economy.
Can't hear anything.
Shall I pause there while I think it's Penny needs to get some help with hearing the recording. I'll carry on now. To ensure that older people are not left behind, as I said, from as we transition from this phase of the pandemic, and the economy is a crucial area, including making sure that people can stay in work or retrain and get support for the right retraining if they're facing redundancy. So in my report, I've highlighted the TUC toolkit, and I think we need to see this promoted as widely as possible, both to assist employers in getting it right, but also to make sure that older workers know their rights, and together that we can help create a sea change, really, in how older people are perceived in the workplace and of course more broadly. So the toolkit, I know, focuses on people over the age of 50. In terms of my legal remit as Older People's Commissioner for Wales, the legislation sets out that I'm here to work for everyone over 60. But we know actually that issues of age discrimination can actually hit people of any age. So we know, for example, that particularly for women, you might start facing age discrimination in your 40s. In some industries and sectors, you could start facing age discrimination as low as in your 30s. And it does particularly affect us as we get older. But I would just say, and maybe with a nod to the introduction where I almost ended up with some of Sally Holland's responsibilities as Children's Commissioner, but in terms of young people, we know that young people can also face age discrimination. And I remember when I was starting work in my early 20s and I wanted to work with older people. And I remember on one or two occasions going for job interviews and people saying, aren't you a bit young to work with older people? So we know that this happens at both ends of the age spectrum. It is incredibly damaging, however, particularly for older people, because it can mean in our 50s and our 60s that we never get the chance to work again. And the key thing is this, that we should not be judged on the basis of our age. Age discrimination is illegal and it is serious. And therefore, this is not a choice about whether we work to tackle it. It is a legal requirement for all of us to do this. And we know that ageism also interacts with other discriminations that we can face, and it can make those even worse. So if we, for example, have coped with racism during our lives, as we get older, we might also be coping with ageism as well. We may be coping with ageism and sexism and racism. So it can really deepen those inequalities that we might already face. So what is ageism? Well, it's about how we think about age. It's about the stereotypes we all hold actually, about people of different ages. It's how we feel about age as well, what our prejudice might be. And discrimination is then how we behave in relation to age. And we know that ageism is prevalent, almost rife in our society. And I think actually we've seen that laid bare in recent months. But we only have to go into a shop to buy a birthday card to see ageism in action. So how many birthday cards have you seen for people in their 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, which are just making disparaging comments about growing older? It's almost normalised, and it shouldn't be, because it is a prejudice and because age discrimination is illegal and it is serious. And one of the things I've always found odd about people who are ageist and who are discriminatory on the basis of age towards older people is that effectively people are discriminating against their future selves. So most of us, if we are lucky, will grow older. So why is it that people seek to other older people as a group apart? So such a serious issue, such damaging consequences for individuals and society and our economy. And that's why I'm so pleased to see the TUC take action in this area. It's why the work of the TUC and unions is incredibly important in terms of protecting people in our workforces, and particularly on this issue of age. So I want to touch specifically now on those issues of employment, and particularly as we enter what we think is going to be a very challenging recession. We know from previous recessions that the greatest financial impact of recessions is felt by those at the younger and older ends of the workforce. So for example, following the financial crash of 2008, unemployment amongst older workers almost doubled and then fell more slowly compared to other age groups. Older workers are more likely to be made redundant and often find it more difficult to find work following a job loss or redundancy, particularly as the support to enable them to find work is not always suited to their specific needs. It's why we need to make sure that specific employment support is available for older workers. I don't think I can overstate the seriousness of where we are right now with the recession looming. I think without the right protections for people in the workforce, without the right employment support and training to enable people to stay in the workforce or get back into work, there's a risk that an entire generation of people in their 50s and 60s may face redundancy at this point and may find it very difficult to get another job before they reach state pension age, almost as if they may be written off at this point. We will all lose that knowledge and experience and skill, but for people in that position, there's a real threat of poverty in older age as a result, particularly, I should say, for women for whom the state pension age has increased and who are struggling to maintain work or to get back into work. So we need anyway to increase the employment rates between 50 and 64-year-olds, which are currently just under 69% of the workforce of the labour market here in Wales, which is actually the third lowest of all the nations and regions of the UK. So we do not have a good record here on employment of older workers. So that in and of itself needs to change even before we get into the issues of the pandemic. So as I said, this issue of ageism and age discrimination is pervasive, and it is about attitudes and assumptions. So I'm going to say a couple of phrases, and I bet we will have all heard of them. First of all, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You're past your sell-by date. And there are many others, these ageist sayings which are sort of just there, but actually influence the way people think about older people and their abilities. And actually, we need, therefore, to tackle the language, because we know in issues of discrimination how powerful language is, as well as what flows from that language. Well, positively, taking action in the workplace on ageism and age discrimination can help, I believe, to really tackle ageism and age discrimination in society more widely. And that's why I think the TUC's work has kind of opportunities to change culture and attitudes beyond actually the workplace environment. If we can make workplaces places where ageism and age discrimination is tackled and diminishes, and actually finally we get rid of it, we will do enormous service to the rest of society as well. And if we're able to engage every of the 400,000 members of the TUC in Wales, just imagine the sea change that can happen. So just briefly on the toolkit, I think it's excellent. I think it's incredibly comprehensive. It's bang up to date, which is impressive given the current circumstances. And it's really practical as well. It's about the support, but it's also about the opportunities if we get this right with our older workforce. It's about culture. It's about having the right policies and practice. And I do commend it to everyone because I think it's a really excellent toolkit. And I want to touch on just one element of it, which I think is really important. And that's about ensuring that we can stay in work as our caring responsibilities increase. Many of us, myself included, will have caring responsibilities for older relatives. And juggling paid work and unpaid caring can be really tough. And we know the peak age for caring is between the ages of 50 and 64. So not only are people in work giving of themselves to the economy, they are also giving of themselves to wider society, because most of the care in this country is not done actually by the NHS and social care services. It's done by you and me, it's done by family and friends. So we have to make sure for the good of society that we enable people to juggle these two things. And that's why in the toolkit, I'm really pleased to see it talk about carer-friendly policies, the opportunity for flexible working, the importance of paid carers' leave. These are essentials for our economy as we go forward. Essential too is that we make sure that training and development is available to all our workers. We can no longer have an assumption, if there ever was a place for this assumption, that as one approaches retirement, that you don't want to continue to learn and to develop. There is no mandatory retirement age now, so we should be enabling all our workers to continue to learn and to develop for as long as they wish to. And we need to make sure that recruitment does not embed ageism or age discrimination. And that includes the language in recruitment adverts. So asking for recent graduates, for example, tends to suggest that people aren't looking for people of my age. If the advert talks about needing energetic and ambitious people, we immediately get a sense of the age group that it's targeting. So both consciously and unconsciously, we need to tackle those biases. We need to make sure our work environments are healthy, and we need to make sure that the workforce of every age feels welcomed and supported. And we know that age-diverse workforces are more effective because they have a range of skills and experience. So finally, in my role as Older People's Commissioner for Wales, my remit is to protect and promote the rights of older people. And I've been working on 3 priorities, which are about helping people to age well, to stop the abuse of older people, and to end ageism and age discrimination, including in employment, including in access to training and education. So at this point, as we are all looking at what Welsh Government and public bodies do in terms of reconstruction and stabilisation as we go through this next phase of the pandemic, we need to make sure that that work does not have any ageism or age discrimination in it. We need to make sure that every generation is included in the recovery, and that older people in employment and caring for others are able to play their part too. I'm going to continue to be scrutinising public bodies and Welsh Government on this, to continue to scrutinise on the issue of age discrimination, to make sure that people have full access to the support that they need to stay in work and to get back in work. And before the pandemic hit, we were running a campaign called Everyday Ageism and providing training on how to identify and tackle ageism and age discrimination. We had to pause because of the pandemic, but we're now looking at how we might be able to develop that as online training to provide some additional support to the work that the TUC are doing in this area. So finally, let me congratulate the TUC on this work. It is vital work at a vital time. There can be no place for ageism and age discrimination in our society, and there must not be a place for it in our workforces. I will continue to hold public bodies to account and to scrutinise on this issue. And I look forward to working with the TUC and other partners so that we can lead the way here in Wales to banish ageism and age discrimination and to make sure that every person has the opportunity to fulfil their skills and experience and to live in an age-friendly society. So thank you again for inviting me to be part of this, and congratulations on the toolkit and the launch today. Jopinvar, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Heléna. You've touched on some really important points, but before we say anything about those, I just want to apologise to everyone. We're having some technical issues. We have paid for professional closed captions to be able to show on your screens, but for some reason I can't see them, so I'm assuming other people can't see them either. We are trying to see if we can get that fixed, but when we put the video out, we will make sure that there's definitely subtitles for each of the videos. Just to say that I think that right now we're right at the start of recession, and we are already seeing the number of older workers that have been impacted or are being impacted, particularly women when it comes to retail jobs. We've seen big announcements as far as Debenhams, Next, and many household sort of names. There will be a number of older workers that will be impacted, as I say, many of them being women. Again, we're seeing things like hire and fire and rehire happening in companies like British Airways, British Gas, Centrica as well. And again, there's a large proportion of older workers, and expecting to literally make them redundant and then bring each worker back in on worse terms and conditions, of course, then means that their pension and so forth is going to be impacted, and again, career progression as well. So we're seeing this when it's very different sort of space at the moment, and it's extremely important that we are very aware of what's in front of us, that we understand how we can challenge these types of practices. And again, just going back to a previous conversation that we'd had about the need for intergenerational solidarity, and I think right now we are definitely going to be needing to really demonstrate what intergenerational and intersectional solidarity actually looks like in the workplace and amongst our communities. So thank you, Heléna, for that. I'm gonna, next up, I'm gonna ask Rhianydd Williams, our TUC Equality Policy Officer, to come in. Rhianydd has got a PowerPoint presentation, and she will run through the brilliant toolkit that we have launched today. So Rhianydd, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everyone to come in today. This is the first time that we've ever launched a toolkit online, and yeah, it's great to see so many people that are taking part in this launch today. So I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. Let me just do that. There you go. Can everyone see the
Yes.
point? Great. Okay. So what are we going to discuss today? Well, I've just outlined some of the things here. We started working with the Older People's Commissioner some years ago and decided to write this toolkit because we were coming up against so many issues. You may have seen our previous campaigns on the menopause, where we worked with a number of people and organisations, and we saw that age discrimination was a massive issue, and we decided to write a toolkit, and that's what we've launched today. Like everything, immediately once COVID started rearing its ugly head, it became outdated, so we've updated it, and there's now a chapter on COVID and older workers. But it also links to work that we've done on invisible disabilities, on autism. It's a whole piece of work. And I'm not going to discuss everything that's in the toolkit today, because I'd like you to go away and read it from cover to cover, please. But it will be circulated in an email following our webinar today. So I've picked some points to go through today. So let's just move on. So Wales has a rapidly ageing population. There are 265,000 more people over the age of 50 than there were 20 years ago. And by 2029, the country's over 50 population will have risen to 1.4 million people. So that's a remarkable rise, around just over a third since the turn of the century. And the reasons for this are quite straightforward. People are having fewer children and we're living longer. So as Wales gets older, so do our workforce. There are more older workers now than ever before, and there will be more in the future. And for this toolkit, we're using the definition of over 50. In the next 5 years, 1 in 3 people of working age will be over the age of 50. And not only are people getting older, but we're also working later into our lives. So that means that looking at age in the workplace context is more important than ever. And we all need to make sure that employers and workers are ready for this. So let's just, oh, I think it's missed out. No. Sorry. I'll just go back here. So let's just start with the strengths of older workers. Because if we're going to talk about older workers, let's not always have it in such a negative context, which is what we've seen in the past. Older workers are an absolute credit to our workforce. And we want employers to recognise the strength of having a diverse range of workers in their workplace. Too often, workers of a certain age face discrimination or bad experiences at work, simply because their employer didn't value them as an older worker. So amongst many others, some of the strengths of older workers are listed here. So starting with experience, older workers many years in the workplace has given them an understanding of what's expected and how their work affects others. Their judgment, built over decades, often leads to better outcomes and a better insight into the workplace. And that's really useful when you're teaching or mentoring other people. Adaptability. Older workers have seen unprecedented change in their professional and personal lives. The baby boomer generation of workers has experienced more change in the workplace than previous generations, and that's set to continue. During the working lives of today's older workers, markets and jobs have expanded globally. Automation and the advancement of technology has transformed the workplace, and it's made it more connected than ever. And in some ways, it's moved away from the physical into the virtual. And the fact that I'm saying this whilst working from home is another example of this. Social change has made massive gains in achieving equality and participation in the workplace, allowing access and acceptance that hasn't previously been there and was previously denied. Talent. So the traditional 3-stage life, education, and then work, and then retirement of life, sorry, education, work, and then retirement, sorry, I'm feeling a bit nervous doing this over the computer, is given way to a multi-stage life in which education, work, and time spent in and out of the workforce all blend together. And that means that there is a huge talent pool available. So employers need to be age inclusive to gain both a competitive advantage and a dedicated multi-generational workplace. So, due to some outdated and some incorrect misconceptions, some companies are reluctant to hire older workers. So by removing the age barrier and simply looking at talent, employers are widening the net of who they can reach. Moving on to mentoring. older workers have gained knowledge about the sectors that they work in, and they're able to offer wisdom and a positive role model to other workers. As we age, our views about ourselves and the people around us, they change. And this allows workers, if they feel comfortable, and that's a big if in some cases, to be in the position of a mentor for other workers. A mentoring role provides a reinforcement when training is being delivered, a role model for other employees to look at, and a guidance in workplace issues. And it can be beneficial to both parties and can represent a real opportunity for growth and skills. And then finally, matching the age profile of customers. So as our population ages, it makes sense for businesses and organisations to ensure that their staff profile mirrors the profile of the general population. Having an age-diverse workforce can help employers to ensure that they have a good understanding of a wide cross-section of the population. And this can help improving with customer services and also be an incentive for customers who value the skills of older workers. Moving on to fair work for older workers. So what does fair work look like for older workers? And it can be many things. So starting with access. Access to good quality, decent jobs. And we don't mean just about fair rates of pay, although that's really important, but things like secure contracts, fair recruitment systems, a chance to upskill within the job, and an opportunity to speak and to be heard by your employer are often just as important. Defending, and by this I mean defending choice. Workers have a choice whether to stay in work until they choose, the choice or the right to retire, and the choice and the right of those who are too ill to continue working to be able to leave with the workplace and be supported in that. Working with employers, we'll be doing that, and we are doing that to manage skill shortages, to make sure that reasonable adjustments are made for older workers, and encourage intergenerational working. In the light of COVID, managing how workers work, where they work, so that work and home life fit together better is really important. And making sure that older workers can manage their work alongside other commitments, things like looking after grandchildren or even pursuing their own hobbies and interests and preparing for retirement. Promotion of an age-inclusive approach in recruitment is really important, as well as career development, job and workplace design. So this means setting clearer objectives in contracts, offering more part-time work, making midlife career reviews a real thing that we repeat regularly. Because we don't just stay in a job for life anymore. Lots of us change jobs, and it should be something that happens throughout our lives, that we regularly review and assess our work and have an opportunity to sit down with someone and talk about our career options throughout our lives. Equality in health and safety, so making sure that employers don't just meet the law because it's required, but fostering a culture in which respect, dignity and fair treatment at work is done, because it produces happier, healthier and more productive workers. And then lastly, retrain, recruit and retain. So it's not just incumbent on employers to carry out work like this for younger workers, but recognising that we will move through different jobs, and it's important that they continue to recruit us in a fair and positive way, that we get options to retain our skills and retrain wherever possible. This is all possible, but there are challenges. And an ageing workforce challenges to set out a clear vision in the workplace. And now is the time to do that. We need to lead the effort from the trade union movement to secure change. And as trade unions, we're looking at ourselves as well as the workplace. We're thinking about our structures and how we make sure that there are inclusive union structures for older workers and retired activists. In the workplace, One challenge is the homogenization of older workers. So what do I mean by this? I mean, looking at, it's important that we don't just see older workers as one just big group. Like any other age range, they're a diverse group of people with different identities. Some are disabled older workers, BME older workers, LGBT+. Some follow different religions. Some will have multiple identities, which we call protected characteristics because they're protected in law by the Equality Act. And I'll talk later about the Equality Act. But it's actually to see older workers as an increasingly diverse group of people who have different demands on their time and energy simply because of who they are. Another challenge is digital exclusion. So lots of older workers haven't grown up with computers. Many may find it more difficult to adapt to the amount that workplaces now ask workers to use them. They may require more training, feel like they take longer to learn a new system, or they may need to ask for some help. For others, computers are not always the first port of call for information, and it may not occur to everyone to download the company app or keep abreast of the website or intranet. For these reasons and more, digital exclusion is a huge issue for older workers, and trade unions have been working with employers to set up computer courses, but it's also important that employers make information accessible as well. And then lastly, caring responsibilities. So making sure that people can meet these. Last minute changes to shift patterns, etc., are really bad for people who have caring responsibilities. Workers at this age may also be looking after older relatives and younger grandchildren. And we know this is a sandwich generation, so people looking after older and younger people. So setting the agenda for older workers, just to sum up, as trade unions, we're helping workplaces to adapt, helping employers adapt to changing circumstances and informing them of not only the business case, but the moral case for age-friendly employment. Communication, so we're leading the discussion on the strengths of older workers, and we're myth-busting about the preconceptions that exist. We want workplaces to respect identity, understanding the nuances between different groups of older people with different identities and protected characteristics, and understand the needs of older workers in the wider context as family members and members of the community. We're working with older workers to help them access reasonable adjustments, and we're helping older workers access reskilling opportunities through learning or apprenticeships. And we're campaigning against the displacement of older workers after losing their jobs. Just to move on to the policy and legal context, and we cover this more in the toolkit, but the Equality Act protects older workers from direct discrimination, indirect discrimination, harassment and victimisation. The law already exists there, and we've never sought to change it because it's not devolved and it actually is quite thorough. But often employers feel that they can get away with not adhering to the law, and that's an important differentiation to make there. Health and Safety Act of 1974 also protects workers by putting a duty on employers to carry out risk assessments, to make sure that decisions are made on capability, not on age, and encouraging all workers to take an interest in health and fitness. But importantly, it also says that employers can't use health and safety as an excuse for not employing older workers or providing training. That's just an excuse, and we can't allow it to happen. So what can we in the Wales TUC do next? Oh, sorry, my computer's froze. So working with reps, some of the things that we are doing, and I hope that, if you've come here today, you can take this back to your workplace as well and start setting these things up. But setting up lunchtime or after work clubs, and that in this context where more people are working from home, that could be online, that could be you know, a mixture of online or in the physical workplace. Conducting workplace surveys, making sure that you know exactly what older workers are needing and listening to them. Challenging ageism in the workplace culture or in recruitment or access to training. So having a real good look at how workplaces recruit people, what kind of terms they use, how they advertise, and looking at those and challenging them. Raising managers' awareness of Wales TUC toolkits, you know, like this one that we've launched today, working on mid-career reviews, age audits. We've got guidance for managers and looking at existing pre-retirement planning schemes as well. Making sure that workers are aware of their rights is really important, because if you're not aware of your rights, then you can't access them. Working with employers to redesign jobs, to look more at flexible working patterns, but maximising physical comfort, minimising impact on our bodies, and supporting skills evaluations and career development as well. And then finally, we can all take this away, help employers be more responsive to their workforce. It's up to us to say to our employers that we need these changes to be made, and we are part of the change. Thank you very much for listening to me today. I'm going to leave some of my contact details here. And if anyone would like to ask questions or would like to follow up outside of this meeting, please feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rhi. That was a real quick tour around the toolkit. As you say, there's loads more in the actual document itself. Sorry, my fan isn't working, so there's a helicopter flying around outside. My window is open, and I'm perimenopausal, so I can't close the window, otherwise I might just die. Just putting that out there in advance, in case anyone's worried about the noise. I just wanted to say there was one thing that Rhi mentioned that is extremely it's important right now for us to be very aware of. And that is that there's a number of older workers in particular that has started to return to work having shielded for a very long time. And there is a responsibility on employers to ensure that appropriate risk assessments are conducted for each and every single individual. And also when it comes to redundancies, of course, they need to be conducting equality impact assessments as well. So if there is anything that you are aware of, you know, we're always really happy to have those discussions with you as the Wales TUC, and also I'm sure with your various different individual trade unions as well. And of course, you know, just to say that, again, we know when it comes to older workers, there's always this assumption, again, that when it comes to insecure employment, when it comes to zero-hour contracts and so forth, that it's younger workers that are only affected and impacted. But actually, there is a large proportion of older workers who also find themselves in those types of positions. And at the moment, we are talking and engaging very closely with Welsh Government about the opportunities of retraining and reskilling people for what the future workplace is going to look like. So we are in those discussions. So again, if you have any ideas or anything that you want to share with us, then again, Rhianydd has posted up her contact details. So please do share those with us. Right, so I'm going to move on to our next sort of part of our event today. We've got Meryl Griffiths, who's a retired older worker, who is going to be speaking about her experience of employment, having worked for a well-known supermarket for a very long time. She's a WASPy woman, and she's also a trade union rep. She's going to be interviewed by Julie Cook, one of our national officers at the Wales TUC, and they're going to be engaging, and I'm hoping that you find this really interesting, because we wanted to have a bit of a live case study almost for you to get a bit of a feel for. So again, this is all new for us doing this online. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shav. Yeah, my name's Julie and I'm an older worker as well. And I'm not quite sure how I got to be an older worker so quickly. It seems to have flown by, like it was only yesterday. I was one of the youngest members of staff in the office, and now suddenly I'm I'm probably the oldest. So yeah, but proud to be an older worker. It brings its challenges. But more importantly, we want to hear from Meryl and Meryl's story. And I'd just like to say a big thank you, Meryl, for joining us this afternoon for our little chat. So I'm going to ask Meryl a few questions, and this is going to be very informal. And so I'm just going to start off, Meryl, by asking you to tell us a little bit about your working life at the supermarket that you've worked for many, many years. I know that. And what did you like about working there?
It was a friendly store. It was convenient. I lived local. It was part-time, very flexible. It was just a nice store to work in.
And what I think you worked in the kiosk, didn't you, for quite some time? So that must have been quite a close relationship with customers and that kind of thing.
Customer service kiosk, we call it the front end.
All right.
But yes, and we get used to your customers. They like to become friends, socializing with colleagues. They're friends for life.
Sure. So had you had any thoughts kind of fairly early on about retirement? Because I guess sort of some years ago, you were probably thinking of retiring around 60.
Well,
and of course that all changed, didn't it? So so did you have any plans about retiring at all?
Well, I just thought I'd retire at 60 and that would be it. I was devastated when I found out I'd have to work till I'm 66, because I've worked for 50 years. I started working when I was 15, so I've worked for 50 years. So I was quite devastated. So I supported the WASPy ladies, and I was quite shocked. So I had to work another 6 years longer.
Yeah, it's got a shock, isn't it, to have to kind of, you know, you plan your life around 60 and suddenly it shoots up for another 6 years. It's quite difficult to take. Time. It is a long time indeed. So, but then things started to go a little bit wrong, didn't they, for you, in terms of the supermarket wanted to change your contract. And so perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about, you know, what happened. What did they say to you? How did that all work?
Well, they wanted to change our contract where we could work anywhere in the store, any times, weekends, which my old contract, I never worked weekends, only if I wanted to. And then if you work a weekend, you'd have double, those are the days when you have double time. Of course, that's all gone now. So yes, the new contract was work anywhere throughout the store. You'd have training, but the hours weren't good. I'd have to go back to evenings, weekends. We'd have to do 4 bank holidays a year, which I never did before. So it was getting quite impossible. And we had 3 lots of meetings, 1-to-1 with your line manager. And when it came to the 3rd meeting, I had to sign because they give me 12 weeks notice after all the years I've been there. So yeah, it wasn't very good.
So apart from having to kind of change hours and work weekends and evenings that you obviously weren't used to, and we plan our lives, don't we, around our working hours. So, you know, how did that affect your kind of personal life then?
Well, I worked 3 full days and I looked after my grandchildren 2 days. So it was a big impact on my life, really, because I was worried, how am I going to look after my grandchildren, because my daughter worked. So in the meantime, I changed departments after 35 years. So it was quite a big thing. I changed departments and I worked mornings, early mornings, which I wasn't used to, which affected my sleep. And it was very physical. and I was quite proud of myself that I could do it at my age, and I quite enjoyed the physical side of it. But when I come home from work, I was shattered. So it did have an impact on me, where usually I'm quite fit and I keep on going. But I found it was so physical. I was working with youngsters, 20-year-olds, a lot younger than me. But I did enjoy it, the physical side of it.
Yeah.
There you are.
But I guess you missed that sort of interaction with customers. I presume that, you know, you didn't have that contact with customers in the same way that you did before.
No. Because I've been there such a long time, your customers become like friends.
Sure.
So they used to come over to see me in other departments. But it was physically, very, very physical.
So all of that changed, your working life changed in the workplace, and then suddenly COVID comes along and it knocks us all for six. So how did COVID impact on you once that came along?
Well, it was quite frightening because we had to help out on other departments. So I had to go on to home shopping, which we didn't have proper training. We just had to work on home shopping. It was very frightening. Do you remember that the shelves were empty in all supermarkets? The shelves were empty, and customers would come in and they would just grab anything and come so close to you. And I was very concerned because my husband's got COPD and I've got asthma. So I was quite frightened. So I was there for about 2 or 3 weeks into lockdown, and I thought it's not for me. In the meantime, a friend let me know. She said, well, Asda will pay you to stay home if you've got certain ailments. I didn't know this because apparently it's online, and I'm the generation that don't go online that much. So only through a friend that I found out that I could stay home because I had asthma. So I contacted my manager, and then it was all set up for me. But the company didn't tell me. It was through a friend. So I was quite disappointed in that. But any case, I stayed home. I had 10 weeks, and they paid me. And I had to take 3 weeks of my holidays, which was fine. And when I was home, I loved it. I loved being home. I did so much. It was lovely.
That's really bad, though, for your employer not to tell you that you could actually be furloughed. That's just really bad, isn't it? And an example of, you know, bad practice, big time there. So now you're at home and you've adapted to being at home. Obviously, it sounds like you're enjoying it. So, you know, your life has changed dramatically, I guess, for the better. So how do you feel now looking back over your working life? And, you know, you've obviously given 50 years of your life to working for somebody. And, you know, that's a big chunk. That's to suddenly go from working after 50 years and then finding yourself in that situation. I'm glad that it's worked out for you. So looking back, in reflection, how do you feel now?
I feel a lot happier. It's been lovely being home. So that was my decision. Lovely to retire. But I kept busy. When the lockdown was on, I was home. I made bags for NHS and masks and laundry bags, and so that kept me going to start with. And then the sun was out, so I gardened. It was lovely. I'm still very busy. I'm quite active, and I'm enjoying it all. That's
amazing to hear. I think from all of us, from the staff here at the Wales TUC and everyone that's listening in here to this afternoon, some will be able to kind of relate to your life as well. And I think for those that haven't, it's been a really good insight into what working life can be like, particularly towards the end of our careers, for sure. So I think, you know, on behalf of all of us, Meryl, it's been a pleasure chatting to you this afternoon. and allowing everyone to share in your story. It's very important, and we wish you every happiness in your new life. So thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meryl. Thank you, Julie. I think that was one of my favourite parts of the session, actually. It's always really nice to get a bit of a conversation going and have that kind of human feel of exactly how people have been impacted. As you say, Meryl, loads of people have, the amount of cases that we were dealing with at the start of the pandemic, in particular around furlough, and the number of people who just didn't know that they could be furloughed, and the fact that actually in many cases employers were either confused or were just keeping the information to themselves. I just wanted to point out that there is, and it relates to retail workers, Asda are currently running a petition to stop abuse of retail workers, and there's a link up in the chat box that we can then share after the event as well. And also just to, you know, I agree again, another comment about the fact that COVID is really starting to impact the way that employers behave sometimes. And I'm not saying that all employers are bad employers, but there are some employers who are using COVID as an excuse sometimes to make changes without proper consultation through collective bargaining and trade unions, as far as changing tea breaks and lunch breaks and so forth. And there's loads of bad practice that's currently happening. And of course, with us leaving the European Union, we are extremely concerned. And again, we are in discussions with Welsh Government. We haven't got much time, but we have got a couple of questions that I wanted to quickly pose, if I may. So the first question that we have is from Jenny Sims, who's the co-chair from NEJ 60 Plus Council and the elected freelance rep for NEJ Wales EC. And her question is, what plans does Wales TUC or the Older People's Commissioner have to help older workers and retired workers with little or no digital skills learn and update their skills to ensure they're not left behind and digitally excluded? So if I can ask Julie and then Heléna to come in, please. Julie, can you hear me? No? Okay. Heléna, do you want to come in?
Sure, thank you. Thanks for the question, and also a big thank you to Meryl and Julie for that discussion, which was great. So digital inclusion is a massive issue. We know for older people, and actually particularly people over the age of 75, you're much less likely to be digitally included. We also know it's an issue if you have low incomes, or if you're in poverty, it's very difficult to have the finance to have access to digital technology. One of the things that's happened in the pandemic is some people who are able to access it by going to the library, for example, the libraries have been shut, so they've not been able to. So in the report I mentioned, Leave No One Behind, Action for an Age-Friendly Recovery, I've included actions on digital inclusion. And one of those things that will be pushing Welsh Government and others to take forward is that there is a programme of activity taken to make sure that people who are digitally excluded, particularly where they've been having to shield, for example, and therefore have been isolated in other ways, that they are supported to get access to digital technology. And there's a number of things that need to be done there. One is affordability, so that's an issue. Connectivity is an issue, particularly in some rural areas. And then getting the right kind of affordable kit to people and the right training and support. So for me, the issue of digital inclusion is now a rights issue, because so much of our lives are dependent on us being able to access things digitally. And the risk is that existing inequalities in our society will be exacerbated if people are not digitally included. And just to give you one example, we know that more and more health consultations are going online, for example. If you are not confident of using online or haven't got access to it, actually your rights to healthcare services could also be affected. So I will be taking action with my team, working with other organisations like Digi Community Wales and others, and also seeking to really see a real step change here in the activity that we have across Wales to make sure that everyone can be digitally included. And I would just say it's not a one-off thing either, because technology changes so quickly. and we can lose our skills quite quickly, particularly when we come out of the workforce, actually. So we need to make sure this is part of our lifelong learning, part of lifelong education that we will have access to. So please do watch this space in terms of the work that we'll be doing. As I said, we'll be pursuing it as a rights issue from now on.
Shav, you're muted.
Julie and maybe Rhianydd as well. So the question, in case you didn't pick up earlier on, was what plans does the Wales TUC or the Older People's Commissioner have to help older workers and retired workers with little or no digital skills learn and update their skills to ensure they're not left behind and digitally excluded?
Okay, I think there are various funds and ways in which older people can possibly access training around this. I don't know if there's anybody on from our learning team that could perhaps say a little bit more about that. And I know that obviously we've got our Wales Union Learning Fund, which that's possibly a way that we could support older people with digital skills. But I don't know if is anybody on from the learning team at all? No, it doesn't seem so. What we can do though is we can have a look and have a chat with our learning services team to see what we can do to promote any kind of access to funding that may be out there, and maybe the Commissioner could possibly help us with that as well in terms of where we can access that, you know, those courses for older people.
Great, thank you, Julie. Before I bring Rhianydd in fact, I've got another question for Rhianydd. I think we've covered quite a bit in this question. Just to mention, there's quite a few good suggestions that have been posted up on the side as well. I think Joe Glasgow from Unite has mentioned their retired members are digital champions and do lots of work to support older workers and older members as well. So Rhianydd, the question that I have for you was from Margaret Thomas, and the question was, how do we challenge increased capability reviews being undertaken to manage out older workers? Of course, this is a big issue at the moment.
Well, before I answer that, can I just say that I've been to some workplaces with some of our learning teams as well, because local government did a big rollout of moving all of their your pay slips and things like that, everything that you access through work online in the last few years. And so they've provided a rolling program with trade unions to go into workplaces, because people who are often in the lowest paid jobs are the most digitally excluded. So people like school catering staff, or people who are cleaners, for example, are often the most digitally excluded in the workplace. And so we've gone out to local government workers like those, because we know that those contracts are changing, and done particular, you know, very specific computer courses with them on how to access things online. And one of my colleagues was telling me that one of the women, because it's been particularly women who've been affected by this, actually came up and thanked him for running this course, because now she could help her grandson with his homework for the first time. So not only could she access her payslip, but you know, it helped her in other parts of her life as well. On the point of capability reviews, the Health and Safety Act is really important here. And I mentioned in my presentation that you cannot, you know, workers can't be, you know, told that health and safety is a reason to discriminate against older workers. We have the legislation in place. So direct discrimination, indirect discrimination, or victimization are the key parts of the Equality Act, in which someone should look at if they feel that they've been discriminated against. And this covers age as well. So if you feel that you're being treated differently because you are an older worker, you can pursue legal action on that case, on those grounds, and you could have your trade union help you. But your employer should never put you through a capability review that unfairly targets you because you are older. And, you know, I know that this happens. It happened to my father. In fact, when he was just about to turn 60, his employer said that, well, you know, you won't be able to do all those things that you could do before as an electrician. And so basically you're out. He left that employment feeling so worthless and not valued. And thankfully, you know, he was able to get another job within a week. He was too proud to kind of go to his trade union and say, I need your help. But the trade unions are there to help you. This is our job. And we can provide you with legal advice that will look at your legal options in taking your employer to task on discrimination issues.
Thanks, Rhi. And then there was a question from Sarah Rees who asked, will Welsh Government be keeping data of job losses by characteristics, e.g. age, gender, etc., to see the trends in impact? And one of our colleagues, Marian, had answered yes to that question. Yes, we are making sure that as much as possible that information is being collected and collated by Welsh Government, but also and not just collated, but that we are aware of what the trends are. So as we are forward planning in terms of what the new the new economy of Wales looks like, that we can factor in some of the changes that we are seeing and some of the disproportionate impact on certain certain groups as well. I haven't. There was a question that was in the chat box that I noticed about the impact on mental health for older workers. And I don't know if any of our speakers, you know, want to make any mention of that. I don't know if Heléna, if you want to, if you've got anything that you wanted to raise in relation to that in particular.
Well, it's a big issue, mental health for all of us. But it is an issue in terms of older people where there can be discrimination. So one of the issues we've started to look at is about the access that older people have to mental health services and support. And the Royal College of Psychiatrists did a very helpful report on this, showing actually that there is some age discrimination there in terms of access to support. So that's one point to mention is around the importance of making sure there is access to the health and support that's available. But secondly, we know that experiencing prejudice is detrimental to our mental health, whatever that prejudice is. And if one's working in an environment where we feel that we're not being valued because of who we are, because of our age, then that will have a detrimental effect on our mental health. So it's a serious issue. I think it's one where further work is probably needed to see its full impact. And we also need to look at it in the round in terms of those things that are happening throughout our lives, not just in work, that can be having an impact. So, for example, we know that for people who are juggling work and unpaid caring, the demands of that can be very great and can lead to mental health difficulties, depression and other things as well. So sometimes it's the combination of things that can hit you at certain ages that can really have an impact. So I think there's a lot that employers can do there in terms of you know, healthy work environments, giving people access to support and counselling and help, and also giving people the opportunity to talk about things like their caring responsibilities, so they don't feel it's something they have to hide away from their work or their employer. They can actually talk openly about it and get the support they need.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so we have one final question from Terry Mills, who has asked, home working and flexible working as a reasonable adjustment has been regularly refused, as it's not possible due to IT, security, management of staff and so forth. Now that millions of staff are working safely and effectively from home, when will it become a right in many roles? I don't know, Rhi, if you want to come in. I know this has been a big conversation recently.
Yeah, and I completely share, Terry's anger there, because we've seen workers who have tried to, work from home and been told no for many years, and then overnight, when it meets the needs of the business, all of a sudden it's okay, and our working world has just changed overnight, and thinking about how that affects your mental health. That could be really detrimental as well, because you have been not allowed something that would be beneficial to the way that you work for such a long time. But when all of a sudden it meets the economic need, then yeah, okay. So in terms of a right for the future, that's something for us to work towards. We are still working with the Welsh Government to say that, if you are able to work from home, then you should. But increasingly, employers have no legal obligation to make workers work from home at the moment, and they are sending people back to work. For many people, working from home has been, very good for them and allowed them to work more productively or more comfortably. For others, who like being in the workplace, it's been a time where you may feel more lonely, where you may feel more isolated from your work colleagues, or you may feel less of the team. But for those who want home working, this is something that we should definitely be looking at in the future, and I will take that back into meetings that I have about it becoming a right for the future as well.
Can I just come in as well, Shav, just to say, I think this is something that that our Equalities Committee should be looking at as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the good thing about COVID, I guess, has been that there's been lots more engagement, lots more fluid engagement with a number of organisations, between the Wales TUC and a number of organisations, and also with a wider range of ministers within Welsh Government and officials as well. So we are having these discussions about working from home and the pros and cons of it, and what that should look like once things go back to what was then the normal. But of course, everyone's talking about the new normal and what that will look like. Heléna, I don't know if you wanted to come in on this point before we close.
No, not really. I mean, maybe I could just take a moment just to say thanks again, and thanks for the questions and discussion. If people want to follow up anything with me, then please do get in touch. And I think, to some degree, the work starts now, doesn't it? We have the toolkit. It's all about how it's promoted, how we kind of assess how that's going. And I look forward to working with the TUC and others to play our part in that. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Right, okay, I just wanted to say a big diolch to everyone for joining us today, and a massive diolch yn fawr to all of our trade union reps, who I know have been working extremely hard, both on the front line as key workers, working from home and so forth as well, and not only just working on their day jobs, but also making sure that their colleagues are protected at work and they are not being discriminated against. And I just wanted to put that on record, a big thank you to those individuals who are extremely important to the trade union movement. Thank you everyone again for joining us. Please do keep in touch with us, and get in touch if you have any further questions as well, and start using the toolkit. It's a document that can be adapted for lots of different types of workplaces. I totally understand that not every single workplace in Wales will be unionised, but that doesn't mean that you can't adapt it or use it, or that we're not available to be able to help you engage with your employer on how to use it and to make that become a practical, useful reality to help you and assist you in your employment. So diolch yn fawr, and we shall see you soon.